Get ready, because today we're diving headfirst into a theory that's like, I don't know, a hip-hop remix of The Crown or something. Remember how you were saying you wanted to unpack all those hidden power structures?
Hmm.
Well, this deep dive, this one takes the cake. We're going to be talking about a possible link between those hip-hop giants, Diddy and Jay-Z, and get this, the British royal family. Yeah, you heard that right. The source material you sent over, it lays out this whole theory. And look, we're not saying it's, the gospel truth or anything, but it's definitely got us thinking. What do you make of this whole thing claiming that Prince Philip was like a major player in all of this?
Well, it's definitely a bold claim, that's for sure. I mean, usually when we think of Prince Philip, we picture, well, a figurehead, right? But this source material, it paints him as this, shrewd operator, like someone who knew that Britain's old ways of wielding power, they were fading, especially as hip hop started taking over the world in the 90s.
Yeah, you got to admit, it's a pretty wild twist. You've got the 90s, hip-hop's blowing up everywhere, and then this text comes along and suggests that the royals were actually looking for ways to, tap into that, to control it even.
It really makes you wonder, if we just, for a second, take this whole narrative at face value. Someone like Prince Philip, so tied to the old world order, he might have seen hip-hop as more than just, a cash cow. It was a way to stay relevant. Imagine that. British influence wasn't about colonies or trade routes anymore. It was about dictating what was cool, what shaped, youth culture across the globe.
They wanted a piece of the whole hip-hop kingdom for themselves. Yeah. And then we get to this supposed meeting in Switzerland back in '97. According to all of this, Diddy, then, up-and-coming Jay-Z, and some members of the British royal family all end up in the same place at the same time.
And this is where we got to put on our skeptical hats, right? The text says this meeting was no accident, that it was all planned out, a meeting to, let's just say, explore some mutually beneficial opportunities, right? But the big question is, where's the proof? Besides this one source, that is, imagine trying to find proof of a secret meeting like that. We'd be talking financial records, leaked schedules, maybe even memoirs from people who were close to this whole circle.
That's like trying to, I don't know, catch smoke with your bare hands or something. But, okay, let's just say we entertain the idea for a minute. The text thing gets really vague about what this so-called deal actually was.
And yet what we see in the years after this supposed meeting is that both Diddy and Jay-Z's careers just explode. They're not just successful, they become global icons. They build empires that span music, fashion, everything.
Exactly. They became powerhouses, right?
Yeah.
So is it just their talent, their business sense, or did this alleged royal connection, with all its resources and influence, play a role?
It's how do I put this? It's like trying to figure out if a tree grew so fast because of the soil, or because someone snuck in some super fertilizer that nobody knows about. This source material throws out the idea of shell companies, saying royal money was secretly woven into Diddy and Jay-Z's businesses. That's a claim that, well, you'd need a whole team of forensic accountants to even try and unravel.
And speaking of things that are hard to track down, the text also mentions Jay-Z's lyrics from back then. He's got lines about diamonds from Sierra Leone, and he's making connections with UK investors. On the surface, it just looks like a smart businessman making moves, expanding his portfolio. But if we even consider what the text is suggesting, it makes you wonder if these weren't subtle hints, breadcrumbs leading back to this whole web of influence.
We tend to think about cultural influence as this subtle thing, this invisible force, But this source, it's saying it can be way more deliberate, almost like a chess game, you know what I mean? Where you've got these players moving their pieces across this global board.
And by the mid-2000s, hip-hop's influence, it's everywhere, right? So the stakes in this, supposed game, they would have been huge.
Okay, so imagine this. Hip-hop is shaping everything. Fashion, the way people talk, even politics to a certain extent. And you've got this text suggesting that the British monarchy, with all its history and tradition, might be trying to get in on that.
So it's not just about the money anymore at this point. It's about controlling the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Shaping how the world sees them.
Exactly. It's about staying relevant. The text is saying that for these institutions, these old institutions like the monarchy, staying relevant, it means adapting. And in this case, maybe that means cozying up to people like Diddy and Jay-Z who have their fingers on the pulse,
It's, I don't know, it's kind of a wild thought, right? But to make their point, the text brings up this supposed dinner at Kensington Palace back in 2008. Okay, so picture this. Jay-Z and Beyonce, at the top of their game, they're having dinner not just with royalty, but with these high-ranking government officials, these shattery financiers.
The text makes it seem like this clandestine meeting, the intersection of entertainment, politics, and global power all in one room.
Okay, I gotta ask, what was on the menu? Did they have a secret handshake? This is serious intrigue.
Well, the text doesn't get into those specifics, unfortunately, but it suggests this dinner, it was about getting Jay-Z's foot in the door in Europe.
Yeah.
Solidifying him as this global icon.
With, of course, the implicit support of the British establishment.
Right, exactly. It's painting this picture of an arrangement where everyone wins. Jay-Z gets access to new markets, new audiences, the whole 9 yards, and the powers that be, they get to use his influence, especially over young people.
But okay, let's play devil's advocate here for a second. Even if this dinner happened, is there anything besides this text saying it was anything more than just a social thing? Maybe someone just thought it'd be cool to invite some interesting people to dinner.
See, that's the kind of critical thinking we got to do here. It's easy to get caught up in the story, but we got to ask ourselves, what else could have helped Jay-Z become so globally famous? Were there other events, other deals that actually mattered more?
It's like solving a mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
We had this one clue, this dinner, but we need more pieces to really see the whole picture.
Exactly. And this is where things get even more complicated because as we move into the 2010s, the text starts saying that the relationship between Diddy, Jay-Z, and this whole alleged web of influence, it starts to fall apart.
Wait, so it wasn't all champagne and roses?
Not exactly. What the text is saying is that there was a price for this supposed deal, for this success, and Diddy and Jay-Z were starting to realize what that price was.
They're like at the top,
Mhm.
right? But they might be stuck in this deal, this situation they can't get out of.
Yeah, like they're on this tightrope between, like you said, massive power, but also maybe being controlled.
And the text is saying that by the 2010s, it finally hit them both. Know what this whole alleged deal really cost.
Imagine that, though. You get to the top, you have everything you ever wanted, but then you realize you might not be calling the shots in your own life, your own career even.
Man, that's kind of dark when you think about it.
It really is. It makes you question this whole idea of fame, Like, at what point does success, especially in music where image is everything, at what point does it come with, strings attached?
The text even says that things like, remember that whole Jay-Z Nas feud? Huge deal in the hip-hop world. They're suggesting even that might have been, orchestrated to keep Jay-Z in line, to distract from something bigger going on.
That's a bold statement for sure. And we got to be careful about, saying someone did something for a specific reason without having, solid proof.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it does get you thinking, right?
Yeah.
About the stories we tell, the narratives we're given, and who's really behind them, shaping them.
It's like a magic trick, You're so busy watching the show, the illusion, that you miss the strings, the ones actually making it all happen.
And get this is where the text goes even darker, talking about some of the biggest tragedies in hip-hop. They're implying that the deaths of Tupac and Biggie, which still resonate so strongly today, were somehow connected to all of this. Maybe to, maintain control over where hip-hop was going.
Whoa, okay, we got to pause here for a second. That's a serious, serious accusation, and it's not something to throw around lightly.
No, absolutely not. And to be clear, the text, it doesn't give any actual proof to back that up.
We have to approach these kinds of topics, these sensitive topics, with care and respect. We got to separate speculation from actual facts.
It's a good reminder that even when we're going down these rabbit holes, thinking about different theories, we can't just say whatever we want.
Exactly. At the end of the day, that's what this deep dive is all about. It's about looking at what we're told and asking questions, thinking critically.
So where do we go from here? The text kind of ends on this open-ended note, saying that Diddy and Jay-Z, they know about this whole alleged deal. They might even be trying to, subtly fight back against it.
Maybe the biggest takeaway is this. Next time you see someone like that, a huge musician, a global brand, anyone at the top of their game, remember this story. Even if you don't believe every single detail, it makes you think, right? Power works in weird ways, behind-the-scenes ways.
It's like they say, once you see it, you can't unsee it,
That's it, exactly. It's about understanding that there's always more to the story than what we see on the surface, especially with fame, power, all of that.
Well, this has definitely given us a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, going down this rabbit hole with us.
And remember, keep asking questions, keep an open mind.
That's all the time we have for today.
Until next time.